Robin Williams was a force of nature, a comedic supernova whose energy seemed to spring from an inexhaustible well of genius and chaos. His stand-up routines were lightning-fast streams of consciousness, filled with impressions, characters, and brilliant social commentary. On screen, he could be the manic alien in Mork and Mindy, the compassionate therapist in Good Will Hunting, or the anarchic voice of the genie in Aladdin. His ability to pivot from hilarious absurdity to profound vulnerability was unparalleled, making him one of the most beloved entertainers of his generation. He brought laughter to millions, yet he privately battled with severe depression, anxiety, and the early stages of Parkinson's disease, which was later found to have been Lewy body dementia. The world was stunned and heartbroken when Williams died by suicide at his home in Paradise Cay, California, on August 11, 2014. He was 63 years old. His death opened up a global conversation about mental health and the hidden struggles that often lie behind the brightest smiles. In accordance with his wishes, Robin Williams's final arrangements were kept intensely private, a stark contrast to his very public life. He was cremated the day after his death, and his ashes were scattered in San Francisco Bay. There is no grave to visit, no headstone to read, no physical monument to mark his passing. For his family, this choice provided a sense of peace and closure, protecting his final legacy from becoming a public spectacle. For his fans, his final resting place is the Bay he loved, a vast and beautiful expanse that reflects the boundless nature of his talent. Memorials are not found in a single cemetery plot, but are created constantly, every time someone watches one of his films or shares a memory of how his comedy touched their life. His legacy is not etched in stone, but imprinted on the hearts of those he made laugh. Lucille Ball remains the undisputed first lady of television comedy. As Lucy Ricardo on I Love Lucy, she redefined the sitcom, pioneering the 3-camera setup and the use of a live studio audience. Her mastery of physical comedy was breathtaking. She was unafraid to look foolish, contorting her expressive face and throwing her body into every gag with fearless abandon. From the grape-stomping vat to the chocolate factory conveyor belt, her skits became iconic moments in television history. Beyond her on-screen talent, she was a shrewd and powerful businesswoman, co-founding Desilu Productions and becoming the first woman to run a major television studio. She was a trailblazer who proved that a woman could be both hilarious and in charge. In her later years, Ball suffered from atherosclerosis. On April 18, 1989, she complained of chest pains and was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, where she underwent a nearly 8-hour aortic surgery. The surgery was initially successful, but just after dawn on April 26th, she awoke with severe back pain and lost consciousness. She had suffered a ruptured abdominal aortic aneurysm, unrelated to her surgery, and died at the age of 77. Initially, her ashes were interred at Forest Lawn, Hollywood Hills in Los Angeles, placed in a niche in the Columbarium of Remembrance. For over a decade, fans paid their respects there. However, in 2002, her children, Lucy Arnaz and Desi Arnaz Jr., decided to move their mother's remains. They wanted her to be with the family she grew up with. Her ashes were relocated to the Hunt family plot at Lakeview Cemetery in her hometown of Jamestown, New York. She now rests under a simple granite headstone bearing the family name, with her own name and dates inscribed below the image of a heart. Her final resting place is not in the heart of Hollywood, but back home, a quiet and poignant end for the global comedy superstar. Sir Charles Spencer Chaplin, known to the world as Charlie, was arguably cinema's first and greatest global superstar. His character, the Tramp, a sweet-natured man in a bowler hat with a signature mustache and a bamboo cane, became an icon of the silent film era. Chaplin was more than just an actor. He was a visionary filmmaker who wrote, directed, produced, edited, and composed the music for most of his films. He seamlessly blended slapstick comedy with pathos, creating stories that were not only funny but also deeply moving, often touching on themes of poverty and social injustice. His influence is immeasurable, and his work remains as potent and entertaining today as it was a century ago. After a series of political controversies in the United States, he moved to Switzerland in 1952, where he lived for the remainder of his life. Chaplin passed away in his sleep from a stroke on Christmas Day, 1977, at his home in Corsier-sur-Vevey, Switzerland. He was 88 years old. He was buried in the local cemetery, a peaceful resting place overlooking Lake Geneva. However, the story of his grave took a bizarre and macabre turn. On March 2nd, 1978, two unemployed mechanics, Roman Wardas and Gansho Ganev, dug up Chaplin's coffin and stole his body. They then attempted to extort a ransom of $600,000 from his widow, Una. The ghoulish plot captivated the world. Una refused to pay, stating that her husband would have thought the demand ridiculous. A massive police investigation ensued, and the two grave robbers were eventually caught 5 weeks later. They led police to Chaplin's coffin, which they had reburied in a cornfield about a mile from his family's home. The coffin was recovered and reinterred in the same plot in the Corsier-sur-Vevey cemetery. This time, however, it was encased in a vault of reinforced concrete to prevent any future disturbances. His simple stone marker now rests securely, a quiet monument to a man whose life was anything but. George Carlin was not just a comedian. He was a philosopher, a social critic, and a fearless linguistic warrior. He began his career as a more conventional suit-and-tie comedian, but evolved in the 1970s into a counterculture icon, famous for his long hair, sharp wit, and deep distrust of authority. His routine, 7 words you can never say on television, became a landmark in the history of free speech, leading to a Supreme Court case. Over a career that spanned 5 decades, he relentlessly dissected the absurdities of modern life, from politics and religion to consumerism and the English language itself. He encouraged his audience to think critically and to question everything. He was a master of observational humor and a titan of stand-up comedy whose influence is still felt profoundly today. Carlin had a long history of heart problems, surviving several heart attacks throughout his life. On June 22, 2008, he checked himself into a Santa Monica hospital complaining of chest pain. He died of heart failure later that day at the age of 71. In life, Carlin had been fiercely anti-establishment and held a deep disdain for ceremony and tradition, especially when it came to religion and death rituals. His final wishes were perfectly in keeping with his philosophy. He left explicit instructions that he was to be cremated and that there were to be no funeral or memorial services of any kind. He wanted no public mourning, no solemn gatherings, and certainly no religious involvement. His wishes were honored by his family. His body was cremated, and there is no grave, no marker, and no public monument to visit. According to his daughter, his ashes were scattered at various locations that were meaningful to him, including over the Spofford Lake in New Hampshire, where he attended a summer camp as a child, and in front of a broadcast studio in the Hudson River in New York City. George Carlin's final act was a quiet disappearance, a fitting end for a man who spent his life loudly telling the world to look past the symbols and focus on what's real. Richard Pryor didn't just perform comedy, he bled it. He revolutionized stand-up by transforming it into a raw, brutally honest, and deeply personal art form. He took the pain of his own life, his difficult upbringing, his struggles with racism, his tumultuous relationships, and his battles with drug addiction, and spun it into comedic gold. He was a master storyteller, populating the stage with a universe of characters drawn from his own experiences. His fearless, confessional style broke down barriers and influenced virtually every comedian who came after him. He was a cultural icon whose work was as profound and socially relevant as it was hysterically funny, earning him the reputation as one of the greatest stand-up comedians of all time. Pryor's health declined significantly after he was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 1986. The disease slowly robbed him of his physical abilities, confining him to a wheelchair in his later years. On December 10, 2005, he suffered a massive heart attack at his home in Encino, California. He was pronounced dead at a local hospital at the age of 65. Unlike many celebrities of his stature, Pryor's final arrangements were modest and intensely private. He was cremated, and his ashes were given to his family. There is no public grave or mausoleum for fans to visit. His final wishes reflected a desire for privacy, a departure from a life lived so openly on stage. The decision to keep his final resting place a private family matter ensures that his legacy is not defined by a plot of land or a stone marker. Instead, Richard Pryor's true memorial is his vast and groundbreaking body of work. His voice, his characters, and his unflinching honesty are preserved forever in his recordings and films, a far more powerful monument than any physical grave could ever be. John Belushi was a comedic hurricane, a founding member of the Not Ready for Primetime Players on Saturday Night Live. He was known for his explosive, high-energy performances, He embodied a raw, rebellious spirit, whether as the sword-wielding samurai Futaba, one of the Blues Brothers, or the gluttonous, anarchic Bluto in the film Animal House. His comedy was physical, loud, and often chaotic, but it was underpinned by a surprising subtlety and a charismatic charm that made him a beloved figure. He was a rock and roll comedian, living on the edge and channeling that intensity into characters that were unforgettable and wildly entertaining. His talent seemed limitless, but his time to share it was tragically short. The rock and roll lifestyle that fueled his comedy ultimately consumed him. On March 5, 1982, John Belushi was found dead in a bungalow at the Chateau Marmont Hotel in Hollywood. The cause of death was a combined drug intoxication, an overdose of cocaine and heroin. He was only 33 years old. His death sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry and served as a stark cautionary tale. His family chose to bury him on Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts, an island he loved for its quiet escape from the pressures of fame. He was interred at Abel's Hill Cemetery. However, his grave quickly became a site of morbid tourism, with fans leaving litter, damaging the grounds, and even chipping pieces off his headstone. Concerned about the constant disruption, his family had his body moved to another undisclosed, unmarked location within the same cemetery. To give fans a place to pay their respects, a cenotaph, or empty tomb marker, was placed in the family plot at Elmwood Cemetery in his hometown of Elmwood Park, Illinois. The large memorial stone bears his name and a skull and crossbones, with the inscription, "He gave us laughter." It is this stone, not his actual grave, that serves as his public memorial. Chris Farley was a comedic virtuoso of boundless energy and surprising grace. Following in the footsteps of his idol, John Belushi, Farley became a breakout star on Saturday Night Live in the early 1990s. He was a master of physical comedy, willing to do anything for a laugh, whether it was living in a van down by the river as motivational speaker Matt Foley or auditioning as a Chippendales dancer. But beneath the loud, sweaty, and often shirtless exterior was a deep sweetness and a vulnerability that made his characters endearing. He was the lovable underdog, the gentle giant whose desperate need for approval was both hilarious and heartbreaking. His films, like Tommy Boy and Black Sheep, cemented his status as a beloved comedy icon. Tragically, Farley's life mirrored his idols in another way. He struggled for years with addiction to alcohol and drugs. On December 18, 1997, his brother found him dead in his Chicago apartment. An autopsy later confirmed he had died of an overdose of cocaine and morphine. Like Belushi, he was only 33 years old. After a funeral attended by many of his friends and co-stars from the comedy world, Chris Farley was brought home to Madison, Wisconsin. He was laid to rest in a private family mausoleum at Resurrection Cemetery. His crypt is sealed with a simple marble plaque that reads, "Christopher Crosby Farley," along with his birth and death dates and the words, "A triumphant soul." The space is quiet and dignified, a world away from the chaotic energy of his public persona. Fans often leave memorabilia, such as rosaries and copies of his movies, at the mausoleum door. His final resting place is not in Hollywood, but back in the Midwest community that shaped him. A quiet tribute to the family man who made the whole world laugh. Gilda Radner was a beacon of quirky, heartfelt comedy. As one of the original cast members of Saturday Night Live, she created a gallery of unforgettable characters, from the gossipy, hearing-impaired Emily Litella to the loudmouthed, frizzy-haired news commentator Roseanne Roseannadanna. Her comedy was never mean-spirited. It was born from a place of deep empathy and a childlike sense of wonder. She could be brilliantly silly one moment and profoundly touching the next. She radiated a unique warmth and vulnerability that made audiences feel like they knew her personally. Her famous catchphrase, "It's always something," would later take on a poignant new meaning. In 1986, Radner was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. She faced her illness with the same courage and humor that defined her career, writing a memoir about her experience titled, "It's Always Something." After a long and difficult battle, Gilda Radner died on May 20, 1989, at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. She was only 42 years old. Her husband, actor Gene Wilder, was by her side. In her book, she had expressed a wish for a quiet, simple resting place. Her wishes were honored. She was cremated, and her ashes were buried in a small, peaceful ceremony at Long Ridge Union Cemetery in Stamford, Connecticut, a state where she and Wilder had lived. Her gravesite is marked by a simple, flat stone set into the grass. The stone is inscribed with her name, her dates, and those of Gene Wilder, who passed away in 2016 and whose ashes were buried alongside hers. There is no grand epitaph, only their names, side by side. It's a humble and deeply personal memorial, a quiet testament to a great love story and a tribute to a comedic talent whose brilliant light was extinguished far too soon. Bernie Mac was the epitome of cool, confident comedy. He exploded onto the national scene as part of the original Kings of Comedy tour and film, captivating audiences with his cigar-smoking swagger and his no-nonsense, tell-it-like-it-is style. His comedy was rooted in his own life experiences, particularly his observations on family and community. He could be stern and authoritative, but there was always a foundation of love and warmth beneath the bluster. This persona translated perfectly to his hit sitcom, The Bernie Mac Show, and his roles in films like the Ocean's 11 series. He was the Mac Man, a larger-than-life figure who commanded the stage and screen with effortless charisma. For years, Bernie Mac battled sarcoidosis, an inflammatory disease that had affected his lungs and had been in remission since 2005. In the summer of 2008, he was hospitalized with pneumonia. While his pneumonia was being treated, his already compromised immune system couldn't fight off the infection. He died from complications of the illness on August 9, 2008, at the age of just 50. His funeral in his hometown of Chicago was a massive event, with thousands of fans and fellow celebrities paying their respects. He was buried at Washington Memory Garden Cemetery in Homewood, Illinois. His grave is marked by a large, impressive monument made of polished black granite. The headstone features a large, smiling, etched portrait of him, his signature reproduced in gold, and the inscription, "Husband, father, son, brother, friend, entertainer." Below that are some of his famous lines, including, "I ain't scared of you," a defiant and funny phrase that perfectly encapsulates his spirit. It is a striking and fitting memorial, as bold and unforgettable as the man himself. John Candy was the gentle giant of comedy, a performer whose immense talent was matched only by the size of his heart. He first gained fame as a member of the legendary Second City comedy troupe and its television show, SCTV. From there, he launched a film career that made him one of the most beloved and recognizable stars of the 1980s and early 1990s. Whether playing the slobbish but lovable Uncle Buck, the well-meaning but disaster-prone Del Griffith in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, or the determined coach in Cool Runnings, Candy brought a warmth and humanity to his roles. He was a gifted physical comedian, but his greatest strength was his ability to convey a deep sense of vulnerability and kindness that made audiences root for him every time. While filming on location in Durango, Mexico for the movie Wagons East, John Candy passed away in his sleep on March 4, 1994. The cause of death was a heart attack. He was only 43 years old. His death was a profound shock to Hollywood and his legions of fans. His funeral was held at St. Martin of Tours Catholic Church in Los Angeles. He was laid to rest at Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City, California, a Catholic cemetery that is the final resting place for many Hollywood stars. He is interred in a large, stately mausoleum crypt, located outdoors in the mausoleum's north wing. The marble plaque sealing his crypt is simple and dignified, bearing his name, his dates, and the touching inscription, "Loving husband and father." There is no witty epitaph or reference to his comedic career. The tribute focuses solely on his most important role, that of a family man. It's a quiet and respectful memorial that speaks to the private person behind the beloved public figure. Phil Hartman was often called the Glue during his time on Saturday Night Live, a title that perfectly described his incredible versatility and reliability. He was the ultimate professional, a master of impressions with an uncanny ability to disappear into characters, from a slick and untrustworthy Bill Clinton to the hilariously inept, unfrozen caveman lawyer. He was the solid center around which the more chaotic sketches could revolve. His talent extended beyond SNL to his iconic voice work on The Simpsons, where he brought to life characters like the shyster lawyer Lionel Hutz and the washed-up actor Troy McClure. He was a subtle comedic genius, a performer whose immense skill and professional demeanor earned him the deep respect of his peers. The end of Phil Hartman's life was shockingly violent and tragic, a horrifying contrast to the joy he brought to others. In the early morning hours of May 28, 1998, he was shot and killed by his wife, Bryn Omdahl, while he slept in their Encino, California home. She was reportedly intoxicated and had been struggling with drug use and jealousy over his career. After confessing to friends, she locked herself in the bedroom and took her own life. Hartman was 49 years old. Their 2 young children were left orphaned. According to his will, Hartman stipulated that his body be cremated and his ashes scattered. In a private ceremony held in July of that year, his ashes were scattered over the serene waters of Emerald Bay on Santa Catalina Island, a beautiful spot off the coast of Southern California. There is no grave marker or public memorial. The peaceful, natural setting of his final resting place offers a stark and poignant contrast to the horrific violence of his death, providing a beautiful, quiet final chapter for a man whose life ended in unimaginable turmoil. Rodney Dangerfield, born Jacob Cohen, built an entire career on a single brilliant premise: I don't get no respect. With his bug-eyed stare, sweat-drenched brow, and endlessly fidgeting tie, he was the ultimate comedic underdog. He perfected the art of the self-deprecating one-liner, delivering a rapid-fire succession of jokes about his misfortunes in life, love, and everything in between. He became a cultural phenomenon, starring in classic comedies like Caddyshack and Back to School. He was also a generous mentor, using his Rodney's Place comedy clubs and HBO specials to give crucial exposure to a generation of up-and-coming comedians, including Jerry Seinfeld and Jim Carrey. In August of 2004, Dangerfield underwent heart valve replacement surgery. The surgery led to complications, and he remained in a coma for several weeks. He never regained full consciousness and passed away on October 5, 2004, at the age of 82. He was interred at one of Hollywood's most famous final addresses, Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery in Los Angeles. His gravesite is marked by a simple, flat granite plaque set in the lawn, a modest marker for such a huge comedy star. However, the epitaph inscribed on it is one of the most famous and perfectly fitting in the entire cemetery. It reads simply, Rodney Dangerfield. There goes the neighborhood. The line is the ultimate posthumous punchline, a perfect encapsulation of his irreverent, self-deprecating humor. It ensures that even at his final resting place, Rodney Dangerfield gets the last laugh. It's a final, brilliant gag from a man who turned getting no respect into a legendary art form. Moe Howard was the undeniable leader and driving force behind one of the most enduring comedy acts in history, The Three Stooges. As the bowl-cut-wearing, perpetually exasperated central figure, Moe was the master of the slapstick arts. He was the orchestrator of the eye pokes, head bonks, and nose tweaks that became the Stooges' trademark. While his on-screen persona was that of a short-tempered bully, in reality, Moe was a savvy businessman and the glue that held the often turbulent act together through numerous lineup changes for nearly 50 years. The Three Stooges created a brand of pure, anarchic, physical comedy that has delighted generations of fans and remains instantly recognizable and influential to this day. After a long and successful career, Moe Howard's health began to decline in the early 1970s. A lifelong smoker, he was diagnosed with lung cancer. He passed away from the disease on May 4, 1975, at the age of 77. He was laid to rest at Hillside Memorial Park Cemetery in Culver City, California, a prominent Jewish cemetery. He is interred in a crypt in the outdoor Court of David mausoleum wall. His crypt is sealed with a simple granite plaque that bears his birth name, Moses Horwitz, along with his stage name, Moe Howard, and his dates. The plaque also includes the names of his wife and other family members interred with him. Hillside Memorial Park is a significant location for Stooges fans, as it is also the final resting place of 2 other Stooges. His younger brother, Jerome Curley Howard, is buried in a grave in a different section of the cemetery, and his other brother, Samuel Shemp Howard, is also interred in a crypt in a separate mausoleum. The presence of three of the legendary Stooges makes the cemetery a unique pilgrimage site for those wishing to pay their respects to the pioneers of slapstick. Jack Lemmon was a remarkably versatile and beloved actor, equally adept at frantic comedy and heartbreaking drama. He could play the flustered, neurotic everyman with unparalleled skill, often finding the deep humanity within his most comical characters. His collaborations with director Billy Wilder in films like Some Like It Hot and The Apartment are masterpieces of the comedic form. His on-screen partnership with his dear friend Walter Matthau produced a string of hit films that showcased their perfect comedic chemistry. Lemmon was a two-time Academy Award winner and was nominated 8 times, a testament to the respect he commanded from his peers. He had a rare ability to make audiences laugh hysterically one moment and move them to tears the next, securing his place as one of Hollywood's all-time greats. Lemmon battled bladder cancer for 2 years before passing away from the disease on June 27, 2001, at the age of 76. He was buried at Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery, a small and unassuming cemetery that is the final resting place for a surprising number of Hollywood legends. In a touching display of their lifelong friendship, Lemmon was buried just a short distance from his friend and co-star Walter Matthau, who had died almost exactly 1 year earlier. Lemmon's grave is marked by a simple, flat stone set into the lawn. The headstone is notable for its wonderfully clever and poignant epitaph. It doesn't contain a sentimental quote or a summary of his life. Instead, it reads, simply and elegantly, Jack Lemmon Inn. The wording makes it seem as if his entire life and death were just another film role, with his final resting place being the last credit on the screen. It is a perfect, understated, and witty tribute that captures the spirit of the man and his profession, a final, graceful bow from one of cinema's most cherished actors. Don Rickles, affectionately nicknamed Mr. Warmth, was the undisputed king of insult comedy. For more than 60 years, he was a comedic demolition expert, fearlessly mocking everyone from Frank Sinatra and presidents to the unsuspecting audience members in the front row. Armed with a lightning-fast wit, he turned heckling into an art form. His act was a tightrope walk of politically incorrect, often brutal takedowns, but it was delivered with a twinkle in his eye and an underlying affection that somehow made it all acceptable. He was a staple of celebrity roasts and late-night talk shows, particularly The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. His unique brand of comedy was abrasive, yet beloved, earning him a legendary status that will likely never be replicated. Don Rickles continued performing well into his later years, only stopping when his health began to fail. He passed away from kidney failure at his home in Beverly Hills on April 6, 2017. He was 90 years old. He was buried at Mount Sinai Memorial Park Cemetery in Los Angeles, a large Jewish cemetery. His grave is marked by a flat, black granite plaque. The marker bears a U.S. Navy veteran seal, acknowledging his service during World War II. While his public persona was that of a merchant of venom, his epitaph reveals the deep love of his family. Written by his wife of over 50 years, Barbara, the inscription is a beautiful and heartfelt tribute that stands in stark contrast to his onstage persona. It reads, "My darling husband and beautiful father, one of a kind. We were so lucky to have you in our lives. We will love and miss you to the end of time. Rest in peace, my loving husband." It is a profoundly moving testament to the private man, a loving tribute that shows the deep affection that existed beneath the surface of Mr. Warmth. Clarice Taylor was a distinguished and beloved character actress whose career spanned theater, television, and film for more than 5 decades. While she may not have had the global marquee name of some other legends, her face and talent were instantly recognizable to millions. She was a pioneering member of the Negro Ensemble Company, honing her craft on the stage. She became a household name and a cherished television mother figure in her later career. Audiences knew her best as Anna Huxtable, the wise and warm mother of Cliff Huxtable on the groundbreaking sitcom The Cosby Show. She earned an Emmy nomination for that role in 1986. She also had a recurring role on Sesame Street as Harriet, the grandmother of David. Her presence on screen was always marked by a sense of grace, dignity, and quiet strength. Clarice Taylor lived a long and full life, continuing to work into her later years. She passed away from heart failure at her home in Englewood, New Jersey, on May 30th, 2011. She was 93 years old. After a lifetime spent in the spotlight, her final arrangements were simple and private. She was buried at Pine Lawn Memorial Park in Farmingdale, New York, a large cemetery on Long Island. Her grave is marked by a modest, flat bronze plaque set on a granite base. The marker is simple and elegant, bearing her name, her birth and death years, and a small, understated floral design. There is no grand epitaph or mention of her celebrated career. It is a humble and dignified final resting place, located far from the Hollywood cemeteries where many of her contemporaries are buried. Her grave is a quiet tribute to a long life and a respected career, representing the many talented character actors who contribute so much to the world of entertainment without the constant glare of superstardom.